Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a look at parenting.
Ooh, fun.
Specifically early childhood.
Yeah.
And we are going to be cracking open The Mother of All Parenting Books by Ann Douglas.
That's a big title.
It is. I have to admit, when I first saw this title, I was like, is this going to be another one of these parenting books that's promising me the world, all the solutions?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not. But I was really encouraged when I saw that other parenting experts had really great things to say about this book.
Okay.
Like they were calling it indispensable, down to earth, and even hug-like when you need a boost.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we can pull out some nuggets of wisdom today as we unpack this first chapter.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
So this first chapter is called The Truth About Parenting. And I think it's really interesting that they start the book out this way.
It is, because I think so many times we have these ideas in our heads about what parenting is supposed to look like.
Right.
And this book, it doesn't sugarcoat things. It really kind of dives into the nitty-gritty reality of what it's like to be a parent.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit more. So what are some of the things that the book talks about when it comes to this, truth about parenting? What are some of those real-life experiences that maybe we don't often talk about?
Yeah, well, one of the things that really stood out to me was how the book talks about the fact that parenting is not this perfect linear journey.
Right.
It's not like you master one stage and then you move on to the next and everything's smooth sailing.
Yeah, you wish.
Right. Like, for example, the book talks about how behaviors like whining can reappear years later.
Oh, yeah.
You think you've conquered the toddler tantrums, and then suddenly your preteen is doing the exact same thing.
Oh, my gosh. It's like back to square one.
Right. And it can be so frustrating.
It is so frustrating.
Yeah.
So how does the book suggest we kind of deal with those feelings and that, the inevitable chaos that is part of parenting?
Well, one of the things it emphasizes is this idea of flexibility and adaptability, because our kids are constantly changing and growing.
Right.
Their needs are changing, their behaviors are changing. And so we as parents need to be ready to kind of shift our strategies and expectations along the way.
Okay, so it's not about having a rigid plan.
Right.
It's about being able to kind of go with the flow and adapt as needed.
Exactly. And that can be really tough because we all want to feel like we have a handle on things.
Yeah.
But the reality is that parenting is unpredictable and there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
It's so true. And that's something that I think a lot of parents struggle with.
Yeah.
We want there to be a rule book.
Yeah.
If I do this, then my child will do that.
Right.
But it just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. And I think the sooner we can kind of embrace that uncertainty, the better equipped we'll be to handle the challenges that come our way.
For sure. For sure. And the book, I love how it talks about not just the behaviors, but the emotional side of parenting.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is a huge part of it, and it's often the most draining part.
Yeah.
It's like we're constantly giving of ourselves emotionally.
Right.
And it's not always easy to replenish that energy.
No, it's not. And the book even compares modern parenting to running a triathlon with no finish line in sight.
Oh, that's such a good analogy.
Isn't it?
Because, between work and chores and just trying to spend quality time with our kids and all of that, it's just this constant...
It's a juggle.
It's a huge juggle. And there's never really a point where you're like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
I've arrived.
Exactly.
It's just this ongoing...
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that the book says about this is that the emotional demands of parenting are often the most challenging.
Yeah.
And there's this quote from a mom of 3 that I think really sums it up. She says, the most challenging thing about being a parent is not being able to make every hurt go away.
Oh, that's so true.
It is, isn't it? And, it's something that I think a lot of parents can relate to is we so badly want to protect our kids from pain and, from hurt and from disappointment and all of that.
Yeah.
But we can't.
We can't.
We can't shield them from everything.
And I think, as parents, we have to kind of accept that.
Yeah.
Because, our job is not to prevent our kids from ever experiencing pain or hardship.
Yeah.
But to be there to support them.
Yeah.
And guide them and equip them with the tools they need to navigate those challenges.
Exactly. And that's where those emotional demands come in.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of energy and resilience.
Yeah.
To be that constant source of support for our kids.
It does.
So we've got the emotional demands, we've got the time crunch. what other kind of truths about parenting does the book uncover in this first chapter?
Well, it also talks about the impact that parenting has on our relationships, both with our partner and with our children.
Okay, so let's dive into the relationship piece a little bit, because I think that's something that a lot of parents can relate to, is like, once you have kids, your relationship with your partner changes. And the book talks about the importance of presenting a united front to your kids.
Right.
And I think this can be tricky sometimes because
it can.
You and your partner might not always agree on every parenting decision.
Right. And so how do you navigate that?
Exactly. And the book really emphasizes the importance of having those discussions privately.
Okay.
So that, you can come to a resolution together.
Yeah.
And then present a consistent message to your kids.
Okay. So it's not about, one partner always getting their way.
Yeah.
It's about finding a way to compromise and communicate effectively.
Exactly. And I think, one of the things that the book really stresses is that this takes work.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
No, it's
to find that balance and to really communicate effectively.
Especially when you're both sleep deprived.
Oh, yeah.
And, just feeling the pressure of parenthood.
Yeah. And you're both coming from different perspectives.
Right.
And, you both have your own ideas about how things should be done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a challenge.
But it's so important.
It is. It's so important. And I think the book does a really good job of kind of laying out, why it's so important to present that united front.
It's about creating that stability.
Exactly.
And predictability for your children.
Right. It makes them feel safe.
Yeah.
And secure, and it helps them to know what to expect.
Right.
So it's not just about, making your life easier as a parent.
Yeah.
It's really about what's best for your kids.
Right. And what about the parent-partner relationship?
Yes. Okay.
How do we nurture that amidst, all the chaos of raising a family?
Well, the book has this great quote. I love this quote. It says, "The family is probably the most complex organization that exists. You've got a minister of justice, a minister of recreation, a minister of food, and a minister of education."
Wow, that's a lot of ministers.
It is. And I think it paints such a vivid picture.
It does.
Of all the different roles that we juggle as parents.
What?
And it really makes you think about, how we divide those responsibilities.
Yeah.
And how that impacts our relationship with our partner.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day tasks of parenting.
Right.
And lose sight of that crucial connection with our partner.
Exactly. And the book offers some really practical advice for stealing back those moments.
Like what?
With your partner. Like, think simple things like taking Sunday drives, going for walks in the woods where, the kids are just far enough ahead.
Out of a earshot.
That they can't hear you. Or even, scheduling childcare swaps so that you can have some dedicated couple time.
I like that idea.
It's really about making that effort to nurture that relationship.
Because it's an investment.
It is.
It pays off in countless ways.
It does. And it benefits not just you and your partner.
Right.
But your kids as well.
Exactly. They see that healthy relationship and they learn from that.
Okay, so we've talked about, this idea of the truth about parenting, the emotional demands.
Right. The time crunch, the impact on relationships. What else does this first chapter kind of dig into?
Well, another big topic is understanding your child's temperament.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's face it, no two kids are alike.
No, they're not. And I think that's something that, as a parent, you kind of go into it thinking,
right.
Okay, well, I'm going to do this and this is going to work.
Right. Like, I've got this.
Right. And then you realize very quickly that
every kid is different.
Every kid is different.
Yeah.
And what works for one might not work for the other.
Totally.
And the book introduces this concept of kid under construction.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that a great way to put it?
It is.
It's like, they come with their own unique personality right from the start.
Right. And temperament plays a huge role in that.
Yes.
Those innate behavioral tendencies that they're born with.
Yeah. And I think it's so important for us as parents to recognize that.
Absolutely.
To really approach parenting with a sense of curiosity and observation.
Be a detective.
Yes,
exactly. With your own child.
Because there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. You have to figure out what works for your kid.
And the book actually breaks down different temperamental characteristics.
Oh, interesting.
Like, things like energy level, sensitivity, adaptability, all of those things.
Okay.
Which I thought was really helpful because it helps you to see your child.
As an individual.
As an individual, yeah. And to understand that, their behavior isn't always,
Right.
a reflection of your parenting.
It's not always personal.
It's not always personal. It's just who they are.
And the author even shares her own personal experience of realizing that her own quiet girl methods totally flopped with her more rambunctious sons.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's a great example of how we as parents need to be willing to adapt our approach based on our child's unique temperament.
Yeah. And I think that can be really hard for some parents.
It can.
Because, we have these ideas in our head about how things should be.
Right.
And then when our kids don't fit that mold, it can be challenging.
It can be challenging, yeah. And that's where I think the book's discussion of goodness of fit comes in.
Okay, what is goodness of fit?
So goodness of fit is basically, whether the parent and child's personalities kind of mesh well,
Okay.
Whether they're a good match.
I see.
And the book acknowledges that, sometimes those personalities might clash.
Yeah.
And so how do we navigate those potential friction points?
Right. Because that can be really tough.
It can be. And I think it's about recognizing that, both the parent and the child
Right.
contribute to the dynamic.
Yeah.
And that creating a harmonious relationship takes effort from both sides.
And I think, understanding those potential clashes early on can really help you develop strategies to work through them.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we'll probably be talking about more as we go through the book.
Okay.
But I think it's a really important concept to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first chapter. We've talked about, the truth about parenting, the emotional demands,
Right.
the time crunch, the impact on relationships,
Right.
and the importance of understanding temperament.
A lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff. I feel like this is just like scratching the surface.
Yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Well, in the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to delve into the 3 main parenting styles outlined in the book.
Okay.
And let's see what those look like in action.
I'm excited to learn more about that. Stay tuned.
See you next time.